thy sight!
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mangs, and we are continuing onwards on the Blue Lions train with yet another Fire Emblem Three Houses character spotlight. This character has been requested a lot, and I know your anticipation is high, so let me see if I can do this one justice by taking a look at the one and only Felix. In the northernmost region of Fargus lies the Dukedom of Fraldarius, a house founded by one of Fodlan's 10 elites, a renowned Pegasus Knight wielding the legendary Aegis shield. The head of the house is Rodrigue Fraldarius, a good childhood friend of King Lambert Bladed. Rodrigue is the father of two sons, Glen and Felix Fraldarius, but sadly Glen, the oldest of the two, was killed in the tragedy of Duscar, a catastrophic event that claimed the lives of many important nobles, including King Lambert himself. Felix, now the only remaining son of House Fraldarius, was greatly scarred by this event. He was extremely close to his brother Glen, and his death affected him deeply. While Felix was mourning, his father Rodrigue proudly proclaimed that Glen died an honorable death in service to the king, and this statement made Felix resent his father, as he did not believe there was any honor in death, and felt like his father did not care about the loss at all. Felix would grow up to become much like his older brother Glen, cynical and rude, but also headstrong, and constantly training so that he could protect those close to him. For Felix, however, he also wanted to become stronger to prevent another tragedy like the one that had occurred in Duscar. Felix would form a strong friendship with the son of the late King Lambert, Dimitri, as well as Sylvain and Ingrid, and the four of them would often train together. However, something happened to strain the relationship between Felix and Dimitri when they were sent off to quell a rebellion in western Fargus. During a battle, Dimitri went berserk and started mercilessly slaughtering his enemies, not just quelling the rebellion, but massacring all those who stood against them. After that incident, Felix lost complete trust in Dimitri, comparing his actions to that of a wild boar, and even calling him Boar in casual conversations, as if it were a nickname. When Felix was 17 years old, he was sent to enroll at the Officers' Academy at Garreg Mach. There, alongside his childhood friends, he would become a member of the Blue Lions House. At the monastery, he would continue to relentlessly train himself, never passing up the opportunity to spar with worthy opponents. Much like his older brother used to be before him, Felix is rude, brash, and headstrong. He doesn't beat around the bush and prefers to speak his mind, even if it hurts those around him. He's a bit of a lone wolf that doesn't usually keep the company of others, unless it's for practical purposes such as training. He's hard to approach and even harder to befriend, and we learned that this is because Felix views most of the other students at the monastery with some level of disdain, as he thinks most of them are naive and stupid. To understand Felix, one needs to understand and sympathize with his outlook on life and death, which is a cynical one mixed with a bit of pragmatism. A good example of this can be found in how he absolutely despises the way most people talk about the deceased. Phrases like, "he died with honor," are an example of the kind of attitude he really doesn't like. To Felix, there is nothing glorious about being killed, it's just tragic. Thus to him, there is no need to glorify the actions of a corpse, as at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that they died and are no longer alive. To have the attitude that death is pointless and tragic is very tough for someone who's mourning. It's much easier to tell yourself that there was some kind of purpose in their death, but Felix hates this notion, viewing it as weakness. In his mind, it is much better to honor someone's memory by being honest and not being stuck in the past. This doesn't mean Felix doesn't mourn or don't feel sadness over those he's lost, it just means he sees no point in lingering in the past and lying to yourself to get over someone. While he may come across as an unfeeling beast, he does display a lot of emotion and grieves in his own way. He just prefers to hide it. Felix's support with Setheth gives us a great insight into his mindset, as it explains how much he hates the principles of knighthood. He says to Setheth that chivalry begets the worship and glorification of death, which means that he feels the Knights of Ceros almost encourages people to die for nothing. And this is one of the reasons why he keeps his distance from most of the students at the monastery. They do not share his values. In particular, this makes him butt heads with Ingrid and Ashalot, who both value knighthood and chivalry over anything else, and this explains why he treats them so harshly in their supports. Even though it appears Felix only cares about swordplay and strength, he does actually have a few soft spots. In particular, he seems to really like women who can sing. In his supports with Annette, we see him approaching her because he overheard her singing, and Annette is consequently also one of the students at the monastery he seems to treat extremely well, though this is most likely also because she doesn't constantly prattle on about honor and chivalry. We can see this repeated in his supports with Dorothea, where he rejects every move she makes on him until she invites him to attend in one of her concerts, after which his entire attitude towards her changes completely, and he actually wants to spend more time with her. I want to finish off this segment by answering a very commonly asked question regarding Felix. Can he be classified as an edgelord? It is a title that is frequently thrown around in the community, and I am definitely one of the guilty offenders here, but does the mantle actually fit him? The definition of an edgelord varies depending on where you read about it, but a thing almost every dictionary online has in common is that it represents someone who expresses opinions which are often strongly nihilistic, and often very harsh and rude. While the harsh and rude part describe Felix very well, is it really fair to call him a nihilist? While Felix's view on death seems to fall into the nihilistic definition of everything is pointless, as he doesn't believe in such a thing as an honorable death, I don't think it's fair to call Felix's viewpoints nihilistic at all, as he does place great value on the living. He just really dislikes the way people glorify death, because he most likely feels it causes people to act rationally. If there is anything I've taken away from watching all of Felix's supports, it is that he's terrified of losing his friends, and that doesn't seem very nihilistic at all. Now, if you want to see true nihilism in action, you should look up Happy's supports instead. She is literally the textbook definition of it. So, no, edgelord is not a fair title to put upon Felix. The category that truly fits him the best is that of a tsundere, which, according to its official definition, is a Japanese term that depicts a person who is initially cold and sometimes even hostile, before gradually showing a warmer, friendlier side over time. Felix might come off as an edgelord initially in many of his supports, but he does warm up to most people he talks to in the end, so this definition fits him much better. That being said, Felix can be a jerk, and his personality is clearly very edgy in nature, but because he cares and isn't really nihilistic, we can't really describe him as an edgelord, though it is understandable why many people make the mistake of labeling him this way initially, myself included. Felix is the only student outside of DLC to naturally bear a major crest. Felix has a unique post-time skip battle model as a Myrmidon and Swordmaster. In terms of the ranks required to get him, Felix is one of the hardest students in the game to recruit into another house. Unused data suggests that Felix could have been encountered as an enemy during the Azure Moon route. Felix's ancestor, Fraldarius, was a Falconite, a class that Felix cannot obtain due to being male, but funnily enough he comes with the skill Darting Blow as an enemy on higher difficulties. In the 4th Fire Emblem Heroes Choose Your Legends popularity poll, Felix ranked 6th place for males with 12,465 votes. Felix shares his English voice actor Lucian Dodge with Leon from Shadows of Valentia and Neysala from Heroes. Felix will join your class from the start of the game if you pick the Blue Lion's house. If not, you can recruit him over to your class if you have at least 15 speed and B+ rank in swords, or you can always unlock the B rank support with him and he'll seek you out on his own eventually. Felix is an absolute beast of a unit. Aside from Dimitri, he will probably be one of your strongest units among the Blue Lions. Felix won't just start out ahead, but he'll stay ahead. With insane personal growth rates in strength and speed, as well as a crest that increases the damage he deals, Felix is one of those guys that will just dish out a ludicrous amount of damage. Felix is actually one of the few characters in the game to come with a major crests, and the one he comes with is the Crest of Fraldarius, which has a 40% chance to raise weapon might by 5 whenever he attacks. For all intents and purposes, you can just treat this crest as 5 extra damage whenever it procs. It may be a bit misleading that it states to raise weapon mights, as this might make you think that it becomes 15 with effective damage and crits, but regardless of any circumstances, this crest will never add more than 5 damage to your attack. The major crest of Fraldarius may just be one of the best crests in the entire game, as it is almost always useful. Felix will most often double attack, further increasing the likelihood that it will activate, and it's even more fun if Felix is wielding a weapon that allows him to quad, such as a Bray weapon or a pair of gauntlets. Felix's personal skill is Lone Wolf. Whenever he is fighting without a battalion attached, or whenever his battalion's endurance drops to 0, he deals 5 extra damage in combats. This combined with his crest makes Felix hit like a truck. That being said, Lone Wolf can be a bit of a double-edged sword, since it may incentivize you to never attach a battalion to Felix, and if you do that, his authority rank is never going to increase on its own unless you tutor him in it. While Lone Wolf may seem very strong in the early game, where you basically only have a couple of weak battalions to choose from, that changes quickly, and the 5 damage he loses from his personal skill will more than be made up for once the battalion starts leveling up. A good battalion to give him early on is Geralt's Mercenaries, which will only reduce his damage output by 2 early on. This means that Lone Wolf is more of an early game skill, and once he starts utilizing Battalion, you can basically start treating it as a backup that triggers once he runs out of endurance. Though to be fair, this shouldn't happen often as Felix relies more on dodging than taking direct hits, but still, it's nice to have it there as an insurance policy. In terms of proficiencies, Felix is strong in swords, bows, and brawling, while being weak in reason magic and authority. However, he has a budding talent in reason, meaning that with enough tutoring you can turn his weakness into a strength and also unlock the black magic crit plus 10 skill. Felix has a higher skill rank in swords at base, as well as bows and brawling, and comes with the Wrath Strike combat art immediately, and can also obtain curved shot very quickly with little effort. Felix has a wide variety of choices in terms of his class progression. Newer players may look at him and think he needs to stick to sword fighting, but the truth is that Felix actually excels at almost every physical class in the game. Sure, he may become an excellent swordmaster or hero, but he also has all the tools to become a wonderful brawler, as his crest synergizes very well with multiple attacks. Sniper is also a good choice for him, as you can combine Hunter's Volley along with Bowfare, Deathblow, and his crest for some insane damage output. While Felix may not start out having a talent for magic, if you eventually unlock his budding talent in Reason, he can actually become a pretty decent mortal savant. Whatever you decide to do with him, he'll be a unit that deletes most things he goes up against. Once you unlock Felix's Paralog, True Chivalry, you can get your hands on the sacred relic of House Fraldarius, the Aegis Shield, which you get by saving every villager on the map. It is an interesting item that, when equipped, grants its user 6 defense and 3 resistance, as well as the Aegis and Pavai skills, which grants a skill percentage chance to halve both magical and physical damage taken. This item raises Felix's survivability considerably, but it also has a weight of 6, slowing him down a fair bit. If your Felix is already fast enough to double, the extra survivability can be nice, but one could make the argument that it is much better to focus on Felix's avoidance so that he doesn't get hit to begin with. So some people may prefer an evasion or speed ring over the shield. It really just comes down to how fast your Felix is and what difficulty you're playing on. If this shield drops him below doubling range, it is absolutely not worth it in my opinion. But if your Felix is fast enough to double, but not necessarily dodgy enough to survive on the front lines, this shield will make him very good. Felix also has a chance to get a relic sword called the Meralta, though only obtainable in the Azure Moon routes, where he gets it by talking to Rodrigue in chapter 15. The Sword of Meralta is a strong relic weapon with 75% hit, 13 might, 25% crit, and 30 durability, and with a weight of 9. It also heals its wielder, and heals for more if the user has a crest of Fraldarius. This sword is definitely something Felix should get his hands on, as it goes along very well together with his relic shield. At the end of the day, Felix is just one of those units that don't require a lot of thinking or a proper build to become good. He'll most likely turn out as one of your best units unless you go out of your way to give him a subpar meme build like that of a bishop. Just send him into combat and watch him cut the enemies to shreds. It really doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. While I may not think Felix deserves the label as an edgelord, and I understand that a lot of people really like the rude but caring archetype, for me personally, I do not enjoy Felix's character at all. Now, a lot of people are going to point out the hypocrisy here in me liking other tsundere characters like Severa, but there is a very big difference here. Severa has tits. You see, I like tsundere girls, not because I enjoy the way they behave, I just find them ridiculously attractive for some reason. And while Felix is certainly a good-looking man, I just don't swing that way, so the guy tsundere archetype does nothing for me. Now, joking aside, I do see why people like Felix. It's charming to see him finally lower his defenses and show his friendly side, and he does have some of the best ace supports in the game, though in a lot of the other ones, he just seems excessively rude when he doesn't need to be. I understand very well that he has reasons for behaving the way he does, but to me, that still doesn't excuse the fact that he's just a big jerk sometimes, and it's just very off-putting. I know this is going to piss off a lot of Felix fans, but for me personally, he gets a 2-star on his character rating. I just find his entire personality extremely unappealing. While I may not like Felix's personality much, I absolutely adore his design. He was one of the first students that caught my eye immediately back when I did the character previews. Before even reading about his major crest or any of his backstory, I knew that there was going to be something special about this guy. He just looks important. I think his design would have easily allowed him to be the main character of another Fire Emblem game. His post-time skip design is one of my favorite ones in the entire game as well, building upon his already striking appearance and making him stand out even more. Or I suppose I could just simply say that he looks great. No homo. 5 out of 5 stars. I've said it countless times before, and I will say it countless times again. It is really hard to review Treehouse's students based on their utility, and as a result, most of them tend to fall into the 4-star category because everyone can be made good. But few of them stick out as being better than their fellow students. Some of them are worse, but most of them are just average. However, Felix is the exception to this rule. He is just flat out better than everyone else. He's fast, he's strong, he hits hard, he dodges like a champ, and crits a lot. In the late game, he will carve a path of blood through the enemy army. Simply put, he starts out strong and he stays strong throughout the entire game. 5 out of 5 stars. Thank you so much for watching this Fire Emblem character spotlights. If you enjoyed it, consider leaving a like and a comment to help it out, and subscribe for more Fire Emblem content. I'd also like to give a big thank you to my script readers for helping me out with the script of the spotlight, as well as Cyan for his editing and design. Lastly, I'd like to thank my patrons for helping me out. You guys are absolutely amazing. If you want to help support me, even if it's just a few bucks a month, every little bit helps. If you want to watch more spotlights, you can also check out the playlist for more. Until next time, my name's Mangs, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.